Welcome back to Older Wives and Me. It's Paul. I'm in Chicago. Today I want to talk about the Stephen A. Smith NABJ thing that happened last week. For those of you all who may not be aware, NABJ stands for the National Association of Black Journalists, and they gave Stephen A. Smith the Thumbs Down Award, which is not a positive thing, apparently for some disparaging remarks he has said against African American women. Now, I have been following Stephen A. Smith because he's a prominent sports announcer. Now he's ventured off a little bit into politics on his show. He has his own YouTube channel that talks about politics and on a range of things other than just sports. And I do remember one time watching his podcast, and he was talking about Representative Jasmine A. Crockett, and he was saying that she was not going to be effective. She wasn't going to get reelected if all she did was just simply focus on negative things about the president, saying negative remarks about the current president. He was like trying to let her know that you need to go ahead and tell your constituents about all the positive things that you're doing in your community for them so they can focus on that instead of just merely all the ways you're going to be able to bash the president. And she did not win her reelection bid. So NABJ says, there was a couple of other remarks he said about, Michelle Obama and some other people. And they were basically saying that, this guy is not towing the line. He's kind of against us now, mainly women, African-American women. So we're going to go ahead and give him this thumbs down award. Now here, I don't want to talk about politics. I'm not here to talk about politics. What kind of got me going was the fact that you have organizations like the NABJ who believe it's their job. People like Roland Martin, D.L. Hewley, they believe it's their job to police the thoughts and what we need to say and how we need to say it and what we need to think about. They think it's their job to make all of us African Americans talk and think the same kind of way, and that if we being African Americans, we point out anything. We critique a politician. We critique our neighborhood. We critique the behavior that's coming out of our communities. If we do any of that, then we are now labeled as coons and Uncle Toms, and we don't like ourselves and stuff like that. That's what I really want to talk about today on this podcast, Older Wives and Me. I think that this is not right. It's not right that they should, shots fired at a person for having their own opinion that's different from theirs. Trying to shut this person down by calling him all kinds of names. I mean, there's like a barrage of disparaging words that's been, lodged against this particular person, Stephen A. Smith, out there in social media land from people who are calling him all. I mean, here's a person who has done so much for HBCUs. I mean, he has literally a staff of African-American people on his staff, like a plethora of people that he's helped African-Americans throughout his life. But now he's a coon and an Uncle Tom and all of that because he critiqued Jasmine Crockett. Make it make sense, because he has people from the other side, from the right, conservatives, on his podcast so he can sit down and listen to what their platform is, to see what, maybe there's some things that maybe we can incorporate. Maybe they are trying to help us. Maybe they have some things within their platform that can benefit us, or maybe he has them on his podcast because he wants to win them over to his side. I don't know. And the only way they would know that is if they would sit down with him and have a conversation with him in private. They should have had a conversation with him in private before giving him that award in public. And the thing is, I think he even said that he had reached out to the president, Erin Haynes, and he wanted her to come on his podcast to sit down and talk with him about all the things, all the allegations that they have levied against him, but she declined. She doesn't want to talk to him on his podcast. She said, I'd rather talk to you in private, which is something that they should have did and afforded to him before they gave him that award. They should have talked with him in private. I want you to listen to some of the comments that Stephen A. Smith said after he found out. He was on vacation. After he found out that he was given that award, he interrupted his vacation to make these comments. Watch this.
Never called, never talked to me, don't know her. The only person I know on that board is Roland Martin. He never called either, but that's his business. I got no heads up. I knew nothing. I was completely blindsided by all of this. Fine. Why am I bringing that up? Because, ladies and gentlemen, before I taped this show, I reached out last night and asked the president of the NABJ to come on this show to have a conversation with me about her assertions. that she articulated on that stage. Do you know what she said to me, ladies and gentlemen? She'd rather have a private off-the-air conversation first. Oh, really? So you can go on a public platform, denigrate me, make these accusations against me without calling. But when I challenge you to come on here face to face and have a conversation with me, now we want a private conversation. I can't disagree. I can't question. Oh, it's how you sound. Oh, it's your tone. Really? Kamala Harris. I didn't say this, and I'm still not going to violate trust. But everybody wants to bring up the fact that I sat up there and I pointed out how she didn't even make it to Iowa in 2020, which is fact. And that a Democratic primary was bypassed in order to facilitate her being a Democratic nominee for the presidency of the United States of America. And then you have it in the palm of your hands and in support of millions upon millions of people. And you go on The View and Sonny Houston asked you a softball question, which Sonny Houston acknowledged for The View, threw it right up there for you to smack it out of the park. And you passed by saying, I can't think of anything I would do differently, when it was clearly a border crisis. Did I sit up there demonstratively asking, why would you curse out the president of the United States with the cameras rolling? How is that going to help you? Yes, I did. How is that disparaging? How? Oh, Stephen A. goes after Michelle Obama. She's the one that compared First Take to a reality show. And I use that as an opportunity to say that this marvelous, wonderful woman, who's the greatest first lady in American history, who I have raised and praised and praised and praised time and time and time again, to the point where I said she should run for the presidency because there's no way she'd lose. All I did was say, I don't like the fact that you said a vote for him, as in Donald Trump, would be a vote against us as women. All I said was there's a whole bunch of pro-lifers out there. There's a whole bunch of people that care about the economy or immigration or safety in the streets. They might not even be thinking about this issue. If I said this about a black female conservative, any of the things that I said about Jasmine Crockett, Kamala Harris, Michelle Obama, would we be having this conversation? Would you have given me the thumbs down award if I had said that about a Sage Steele? If I had said it about a Candace Owens? If I had said it about a Condoleezza Rice?
The thing is, here's what I have to say about all of this. Why is it NABJ's job, people like Roland Martin, D.L. Hughley, why is it their job to police the thoughts that are coming from the African-American community? Why do they think that we should all think like a monolith, all think the same kind of way? And if any of us think different than them, then we're sellouts and we're coons and we're Uncle Toms. If I go to, like, I'm from Chicago. When I go to the south side of Chicago or the west side of Chicago, there are some communities within those parts of Chicago. You ride through there, man, there's vacant lots everywhere. There's garbage everywhere. I literally have seen people, African Americans, roll their windows down and throw out their trash out of the windows onto the very streets in which they live in. And if I put that on my podcast, I guess I'm putting it out on the podcast today, some people will say, you don't like yourself. What is it? You're a coon. You're working for those people. We need to not air our dirty laundry out there so that they can see what's happening. Newsflash, they can see what's happening within our communities. They have access to social media like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and our very own people are posting these type of videos of people twerking on top of police cars, fighting with each other in public over stupid stuff that doesn't matter. They see this stuff. It's not like we can police it like politicians and celebrities can police this stuff and not talk about this stuff and not address it and not hold people accountable, because some people are so afraid of holding those people accountable because they're afraid that if they bring it out, if they air out this dirty laundry in front of Hispanics and white people and Asians, then basically what they're afraid of is then those people will start associating them with the behavior that's happening in the hood. Because aren't they your relatives? Aren't they your people? Aren't they your uncles, aunts, and all that kind of stuff? People do it. They broad stroke an entire group of people without understanding within every group of people there are good people and there are bad people in every group of people. I mean, why do we, including white people, black people, we all do this? Why do we broad stroke an entire group of people based off of the actions and behavior of one person or a small micro group within that group? But the thing is, even though people will broad stroke, even though people will associate me with negative behavior because of some TikTok video of somebody out there doing some crazy stuff, we still gotta address it, and we still gotta hold those people that are doing negative things accountable. And we cannot be afraid of organizations like the NABJ and people like D.L. Hewley, Roland Martin, whatever. We can't be afraid of them lobbing insults at us, lobbying all kinds of slander at us, calling us out of our name, acting like witches and warlocks, calling us coons and all of that kind of stuff. And for those of you who may not be aware, when you call somebody other than what God calls them, you are acting as a warlock and a witch, trying to, speak those negative words out there in the metasphere and get groups of people to agree with you so that they can speak it against you. And now you feel the attack. That's just, for those who know, you know what I'm talking about. We cannot be afraid of addressing issues within our community for fear that people are going to label us as Uncle Toms or Coons, because we just want to see something improve within our communities. One time I was watching Roland Martin, and there was a guy, I'm not sure what his name was. He was a young student, a young man, and he was telling Roland Martin, look, we don't have to wait for those people over there to give us the funding to build our own grocery stores, to build our own schools, so on and so forth. And Roland Martin was like arguing against the young man, saying that no, you don't understand, da 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 da. And the guy was like letting Roland Martin know, look, man, you guys believe this way, but look, we don't believe and think like you. We're not waiting for those people over there to help us. We can help ourselves collectively. Why are we always blaming those people over there? Watch this clip right here.
But you guys promote voting like it's just going to change like the systemic outlook of the black community. That's not where it's at. We have to get out and go do for self in our own communities.
So so define do for self.
When I say do for self, you shared one of my tweets, my videos, and I was actually a big fan of yours, but you shared one of my tweets when I said black people need to stop begging the government and go and do for self out in our communities. You shared the video and called me an idiot. I didn't see anything idiotic about that statement at all.
So when you say do for self, like what? Mm-hmm. Explain that.
Okay, for example, here in Albany, Georgia, we complain about our school systems a lot. Many of our young men can't read. They have very horrible literacy rates. We don't have any rehab programs here for juvenile offenders. What I decided to do, I started a program 2 years ago, decided to do for self, and I started taking children into my home. I started taking custody of kids from juvenile court, and I started molding them and training them and teaching them skilled trades, etc. Now I'm 21 years old. I just purchased a school here in Albany, Georgia, to combat us being in the government-funded schools that are not teaching our children what they need to learn. So that's what I mean by do for self, simply getting up and going out and do it.
So
I beat the stereotype that I'm young, black, and in America, and I can't do anything because somebody's holding me down. Absolutely not.
So a question.
Teenagers winning.
I mean, do you agree with this young man's point? You're going to have people like D.L. Hewley, Roland Martin, NABJ, people like that. They're going to always keep trying to play this race card, try to make us believe that it's their fault over there. Now, I'm not negating the fact that things didn't happen, that it wasn't a systematic thing that happened a long time ago that set their people up for generational wealth while we were, basically giving them free labor, and so they didn't have to pay that cost, and so they can take that money and invest in other things because they had slaves and they didn't have to pay them. I'm not negating that incident didn't happen and didn't set them up for wealth, but what I am going to say is going to shock some people. When you start your own business, okay, you are hoping one day that your children are going to benefit from that business and they may take it over. You're hoping that your grandchildren, your great-great-grandchildren will benefit from that business, from the profits from that business. You want them to have an inheritance, so to speak, generational wealth to be passed down to them. You're not starting a business, let's say you're African American, I'm just going to put it out there, and I'm going to say this before you get offended. I'm not, I'm just saying this for illustrative purposes. You African Americans start a business. You're not hoping that the Hispanics are going to take over the business in the next generation. You wake up one day and you're like, oh my God, I thought my sons and daughters were going to take over this business. It's being ran by Hispanic people. How did this happen? No, you want your grandchildren to take over that business. So why do we think that it was wrong for white people who came over here and kind of did all of this and they set it up? Why do we get mad at them because, we see their people, their family members prospering generation to generation to generation? Of course they're going to do that. They're supposed to do that, and we're supposed to do the same thing. We're supposed to start our own businesses and stop thinking that those people over there are holding us back. There's groups of people within our own diaspora that believe that those people over there, until those people give us some money, though they won't let us type of mentality. Who in the world are they? We act like those people over there are our parents. We act like that, we have this narrative out there too to say we're the kings and queens and, stand up king and queen. And, like we had all this power over there, and all of a sudden somehow they had greater power and they stole our power and took it from us. We don't know how they took it from us. And we're waiting on these people over there to kind of help us and to give us the green light, to give us the money, to give us all these tools to help us to start our own business. Watch this clip right here of this African-American person going into a store that I think the store is ran or owned by an Arab or a Muslim or, someone from the Middle East. Watch this clip and watch what he's talking about and his thinking. And you tell me if his thinking is right or wrong. Watch this clip.
Good. Are you the owner?
Yes, sir.
Do you think it's right that you own a store that mostly all black people live in this community?
You think it's wrong?
Of course. I don't own a store in your community.
What does that have to say?
It has everything to do with it.
Why are you buying here then?
Well, because I just wanted to ask you that question. Do you think it's wrong? Don't you think black people should own stuff in their own community?
They should, yeah.
Well,
Not stopping them.
I went through the comment section, and it looks like a lot of people in the comment section were saying, hey, man, no, this is her business. You and I can own our own business if we want to. Why are we coming into a store, intimidating her and asking her this question, asking her this type of question? So from the comments, it looks like overwhelmingly everybody was like not in agreement with what this guy was doing. But I put this clip in here because I want you guys to think a lot of times we as African Americans, we are saying silly things like they won't let us. And why do they have a store in our community? As if we can't put our money together and open up our own business. I've seen it done. I know people say, well, no, we don't. They won't give us the money and this and that. Look, I have been in churches where people took up an offering and paid off the building fund after they did that offering. Someone gave 100, someone gave 1,000, 50. Next thing you know, the building fund was paid for. We can collectively come together and put our money together and open up a grocery store, a beauty supply store, whatever you want to do. But here is the dirty laundry that nobody wants to talk about. The issue is in many of our communities where there's poverty, the poverty mindset is people are afraid of other people getting ahead. You have an idea, wow, why didn't I think of that? And when you become successful, then they have this in their heart and mind, like, man, it's like if they celebrate, if they help you, it's almost like saying, well, why can't I do it? Why haven't I done it? And that's coming from a poverty mentality, the wrong motive. So instead of helping other people to become successful by, let me go ahead and contribute 100 here. Let's all get together and let's open up this store and let this person be in charge. And let's not try to take over his idea, but let's just help him with his idea. Other immigrants do the same thing. I remember I was watching this prominent Jewish person. I can't remember his name. He said when they buy a house, Jews, he said that they get their cousins to mow the lawn. They go to their uncle who's a financier, who owns a mortgage company. They all collectively play a part and come together, and they all support each other. We've got to hold ourselves accountable, and we cannot be afraid when you have people like Stephen A. Smiths and people like that are trying to merely point out the obvious that everyone knows, but we don't want to talk about it. Because how can we improve and get better unless we talk about things? And, if I, I'm from Chicago, and I travel a lot throughout my city, and I'm often in low economic, depressed neighborhoods, African Americans neighborhoods. And if I go there and I'm seeing like garbage everywhere, I literally have seen people roll their window down, other African American people rolling their car window down and throwing trash out of their car window onto the streets, the very streets in which they live. And there's a trash bin right there in which they could have put the trash in. There's trash everywhere. You want to blame the people 5 miles away and say, because their neighborhoods are cleaner, you want to blame them and say, well, hey, it has nothing to do with those people way over there. You can put the trash in the trash bin. You can get up in the morning and show up to work on time. When you get your paycheck, you can decide where that money is going to go to. Instead of spending it on material things, thinking it's going to make your life better because you keep buying these material things that's made by other people. See what I'm saying? That's your decision to show up to work on time, and when you go to work and be productive. It's your decision that when you're in college that you study very, very, very hard and get an A and B and not a C and D. That's your decision. You cannot blame those people over there. We have to be accountable instead of always blaming it on those people over there. And so I know, what does this have to do with Stephen A. Smith and NABJ? They were upset with Stephen A. Smith because he's pointing out things, because he's reaching across party lines. Because, see, I want you to listen to what this lady, Jamil Hill, said. Now, she's a journalist. I believe she's also a member of the NABJ. She was on the Chris Cuomo report the day after Stephen Smith got the Thumbs Down Award. Chris Cuomo is a good friend of Stephen A. Smith, so he invited her on to his show to kind of explain, what just happened, because he's white and he wants to hear it from a black person's perspective of why they did what they did to Stephen A. Smith.
So I don't think it would be good to challenge Stephen A. on his overall record as it relates to what he's contributed to this profession. But that being said, and this is where it gets a little dicey, and maybe why this conversation isn't great to have in public, is because you have done great things and because you have contributed in ways that are meaningful and lasting and impactful, that doesn't mean you're above criticism. And so there have been some times in the past year where I think a lot of people, as to use a expression, a bit of slang, is like they looking at him real funny in the light. And I think it is criticism that is worthy of being addressed and looked at and scrutinized. And I hope some of it he actually takes to heart, to understand that this was not an attack as much as it was a, hey, we might need to pull your coat to some things that you might not be realizing how you're appearing
Right.
when you're making some of these
Right.
opinions and observations.
Well, here is the easy take is your first take, which is this is not the way to do it. There's a macro concern, and then there is a, let's call it a race concern, okay? Because that's the way Stephen A. sees it. The macro concern is they didn't say you've done a couple of things. They said that he has contributed to narratives and perceptions of black women. That is a big swing at him, and that hurt him personally as a father and a brother and a son. And I've never heard the organization or any organization say that about one of its members.
Now, if you notice from the tone of Chris Cuomo, man, he's trying to protect, he's trying to defend, Stephen A. Smith because they're friends. And Jamil, she's like, you know what, I'm a friend of him. It's nothing against him. We just want to let him know that he kind of went out there too far. We want to rein him in a little bit, kind of like that spirit, rein him in. A grown man who has core values, we're going to just make him, rein him in. I didn't kind of agree with that kind of spirit, but she was trying to say we're just trying to get his attention because maybe he doesn't realize that he's gone off the rails. It's their job, NABJ, to get his attention, to let him know he's going off the rails. We don't like the narrative. We don't like what he's talking about. We don't like the fact that he's reaching across the aisle to people like Megyn Kelly and Sean Hannity and people like that and saying disparaging things against, Jasmine Crockett. And, I think he said something about Michelle Obama. She said something about, you need to vote for Kamala Harris. It's like if you don't vote for her, it's because you're afraid of a woman, being the next president of the United States to African American men. And he kind of stood up and said, no, it had nothing to do with that. Stephen A. Smith was saying like, no, it has something to do with policies, and they just wanted him to shut up because they don't want him to say the obvious. See, the thing is, like I said, a lot of people like that. NABJ, Roland Martin, people like that, they think that we are a monolith, that all African American people should say the same things, think the same things, be excited about the same thing, be passionate about the same things that they're passionate about. And what they fail to understand is that if you get 8 different African American people together, one from Chicago, one from Arkansas, one from New York, a Jamaican American, a Haitian American, a Nigerian American, a Ghanaian American, a Black Puerto Rican American. If you put them all in the same room, they're going to have different opinions. Different things affect them differently. We're not all moved by the same things. One person could be a multimillionaire and taxes is what's on his mind. Another person, crime in the neighborhood is on his mind. Another person, maybe what's happening in the school system because his children go to school, it's on his mind more than anything. But it may not be on the other person's mind who's a multimillionaire who homeschools his children. One person is going to be an atheist, another a Muslim, another a Christian, another person's in Santeria, whatever. They all have different. How do we think we're going to get the same outcome? The only thing that all of them have in common that's in that room is the color of their skin. That's it. They all have different opinions on different things, and for people to get upset because maybe one person is saying one thing and they're all black people, and one person saying this and another person saying that, and then they get mad and they want to shut those people down. They don't want them to talk because we're all talking about this right now, and you shouldn't be talking about that. And who are they to do that? Control. Who are they to control those people? What we should do is listen to what they have to say. Because if you don't listen to what these people have to say, then you're going to lose them. They're going to go somewhere else where people are listening to them. If people are not holding people accountable about things that are happening within our communities, and the politicians are ignoring it, they're trying to police the narrative. They don't want people to see the dirty laundry, so to speak, even though people know what's going on in our communities. But they don't want people to see the negative stereotypes and things like that. But if you don't address it, somebody else will address it. I want you to, and why is it that why is it that it's only YouTubers that are addressing the negative stuff that's happening within our communities, and not the politicians, not the movie stars, and not the influencers, the great influencers? Why aren't they addressing these types of things, having these type of conversations, so that these negative stereotypes, these negative things that are happening in our communities can change? Twerking and people beating each other up and stuff like that. Why does it take, a YouTuber like Carmen JC, for example? I want you to watch this clip of this YouTuber that it came across my news feed. Her name is Carmen JC. Why does it take someone like her to comment and get this visceral, viral reaction from the people that are commenting? Because she's bringing up the obvious. Watch this.
White people is not the reason your neighborhood is in shambles. White people is not the reason that you throw your flaming hot bag on the ground. White people is also not the reason for you having bulletproof glass or being fed through bulletproof glass in your neighborhood. White people are not the reason for you guys being baby mothers, for you having children out of wedlock. They're not the reason for that either. And they're definitely not the reason why you guys are killing each other. The truth is, a lot of these things that are happening within our community, we have control over. We can change them if we choose to identify and do something about these issues. But it is us that refuse to do anything about our own issues. And instead, we choose to blame other races of people. And that is why nothing is getting done. That is why we are constantly being shot down, not only by ourselves, but other races of people are starting to shoot us down because we are not doing nothing about the issues in our community. And they're spilling over into other communities where they are doing something about it. So the question is, should we be blaming white people or should we blame ourselves?
See, and yet you won't talk about this, politicians. You won't talk about this. You won't address this. How can we solve problems like, again, trash being everywhere in African American communities, no matter what city you go to? You can go to LA, you can go to Chicago, there's trash in all of these neighborhoods that should be in a trash bin. How can we change these behaviors of people fighting with each other because, you know, their fries were cold, and you know they think that the people behind the counter did it on purpose, so now they're ready to fight and tear up the whole entire store. And they've gotten all these people, these young people, to think that this behavior is black culture, this behavior is acceptable. You know, the thing is, as long as you can find 10, 12, 13, 14 people, 50 people to agree with you think it's okay because you found some people to agree with you. See, it takes a force of people that understand what's right and understand what's wrong to confront and to call it out, to say no more. And of course, those people are going to get verbally attacked. They may even get physically attacked, but it has to be done. The masculine male energy must begin to rise so that all this stuff that was created by the feminine energy, and I'm going to put it out there and say it, nothing against women. I love women. I'm married to a beautiful woman. But this, too many of our whole African-American diaspora in America has literally been headed by feminine energy. And for those people, they want to deny it. They want to be in denial. It's single family households. Single woman that's raising up 3 young boys into men. Those young boys are looking for the male energy. The father is not there. The father's being talked about as a bad person. Maybe he is a bad person. He left them behind. He's not with the mama. The mom is battling, trying to work 2 jobs to keep a roof over their head, and now it's like a flex. This is like a badge of something. Like, you know, when people become successful, they want to say, "Oh, I want to thank my mom. She really worked so hard to keep us all together. Man, I saw her working 2 jobs. I saw her working as a dishwasher or whatever, a maid, and all of that. And it's a flex. I overcame because of her. Thank you, mama." You know, you never hear him talking about the father. You see, you have so many women within our communities that are trying to raise boys into men, and now these boys are out there acting crazy because they're looking for the masculine energy, and the only thing they can find that's masculine is the gang culture. You know, and this is not a flex. Where are the men? See, we don't want to talk about that. The men are out there they're going from person to person with no God over them to help them with the morality issues, having sex with every person they can have sex with, having children everywhere, leaving and abandoning them. You want to blame it on the system. You want to say it was the system. If only we had enough wealth in our communities, this wouldn't be happening. And I've seen people come over from poor nations making $30 a month, $300 a month, and they come over to America and they think, jackpot, I'm going to work these 2 jobs. I'm going to save up my money. I'm going to bring my brother over, my uncle over. We're going to all live together and pool our money together. I've seen people from Nigeria do it. I've seen people from the Philippines. I've seen people from Mexico do it. I've seen so many people from poor nations. See, so we can't always blame poverty in this system. It really has a lot to do with being trained the right way. It really has a lot to do with how you were raised. And nobody wants to talk about this type of stuff. Maybe people like Stephen A. Smith wants to talk about it on his podcast, but maybe he'll get the backlash. So it has to come from people like, you know, Carmen JC, a YouTuber. Who is she? We don't know, but what she's saying is right. And now, are you going to call everybody a coon, a Uncle Tom, because they're just trying to hold us accountable? They're trying to say we can do it. We can open up our own stores within our own community. We don't. Everyone's saying, "Oh, why won't they let us open up a store?" It's always Asian people. It's always Muslims. They're in our community. They shouldn't be there. I want you to watch this. Watch this YouTube video of this guy who went inside of a store that's owned by, I believe, somebody of Arabic descent or Muslim or something like that. And he went into the store and was like, "Well, why is this store owned by you? Why is it not owned by black people?" And I want you to listen to what he's talking about, what he's saying, and I'm going to talk about this after we watch this. After we watch this clip, watch this.
Good. Are you the owner?
Yes, sir.
Do you think it's right that you own a store that mostly black people live in this, all black people live in this community?
You think it's wrong?
Of course. I don't own a store in your community.
What does that have to say?
It has everything to do with it.
Why are you lying here then?
Well, because I just wanted to ask you that question. Do you think it's wrong? Don't you think black people should own stuff in their own community?
They should, yeah.
Well,
Not stopping them.
Well, she said, you know, if you want to, you can open up a store. What's stopping you from opening up the store? There is nothing stopping us from opening up a store within our own communities, other than bitterness, self-hatred, jealousy, all that kind of stuff. We're spending our money on the wrong thing, material things. We should be saving our money to invest it, making other decisions, better decisions. There is nothing stopping us. We got to stop blaming the system and blaming those people over there. You know, the lady was right. What's stopping us? Like I said, I've been in churches where people took up offerings. One gave 1,000, another gave 500, and the building fund was paid for just like that. We can do the same things. So anyway, I know I'm saying a lot in this podcast, but like I said, I just don't like the fact that organizations like NABJ and D.L. Hewleys and the Roland Martins, they're always trying to police the narrative, and they're not trying to talk about things that are really important. And they want to shut people down like a Stephen A. Smith and other people like that when they begin to air out the dirty laundry and talk about things that are important. They want to keep everybody focused on racism and division. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist, because rejection and people thinking that they're better than other people, that's going to be out there to the end of time. That even happens within our own group of people, where there are people who think that they're better than, they're trying to stop other people, they're jealous, they're insecure, they don't want to see other people rise. This is going to continue. We're not going to be able to eradicate all this with just a political person or an election, because that's human behavior. We need to focus on solutions. We have enough wealth within the African American diaspora now for everybody to collectively come together and put $1 million here, $2 million there, and $3 million, and then the problem can be solved. But you got to ask yourself, why isn't this happening? It's on a deeper spiritual level that people don't want to talk about. The fact that we see this dysfunction within our communities is on a deeper spiritual level that people don't want to address and talk about. People have gotten away from something that used to kind of help us to rise, and now there's so many atheists now out there saying, there is no, so we can do whatever we want to do. There are no consequences. There is no afterlife that we're going to stand before, so we might as well do what we want to do now, whatever we want to do. Fulfill our every fleshly desire and fantasy.